Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching from, we appreciate you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another episode. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Tiny Capital. Tiny Capital is an overnight success that only took 15 years to make, and for more than a decade, they've been partnering with founders to give them quick, straightforward exits that protect their team and culture while keeping that business they've built operating for the long term. If you're interested, check them out at tinycapital.com. My name is Caleb Talley. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events here at Startup Junkie. I'm joined by my fellow host and Startup Junkie Managing Director, Jeff Emerine. We are honored today to be joined by the founder of a very cool business called Inc. His name is Pete Jukoff, and that's Inc. with spelled I-N-Q, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today, Pete.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I appreciate it. I like what you guys are doing, so I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks.
Well, give us the rundown give us a little bit of your background, and I know you're a serial entrepreneur, but give us talk about the latest gig as well. What are you doing?
Sure. So just one thing to point out to people out there is Jeff and I met through Naval Academy alumni networking thing. So you never know where you'll meet somebody and click with them, and who knows where that goes. So, just like keep an open mind at all times with who you meet. But quick background about me, Naval Academy, 5 years active duty. Multiple deployments, different stuff. Got out because I was recently married and didn't want to see a future of being gone all the time and having a family and all that. So got out, and at the time knew only about the defense contractor route or continuing on as a government civilian. So getting out of the military, my view of what the options were out there was very limited. So I went the defense contractor route, which means I was a consultant with a small company serving a government client. And in my case, it was a cybersecurity office in the Pentagon. Did that for a few years, did my MBA in the evening, and then switched to a more private sector type of role. So I was slowly kind of inching away from the government behemoth to more private sector, and landed a job with NetApp, a data storage company, a company out of the West Coast there. And I ran a team of consultants and engineers there. And my clients were still in the government. So I was still kind of attached to the government. I was slowly easing my way away, but still kind of attached to some degree. And there, while there, I had an opportunity where my wife's college roommate, she was leaving Google to do a startup with some other people from Google. And I joined them right at the beginning as their COO. With my experience leading teams in the military and then in the private sector, I came in to kind of run operations for that company. Did that for a year or two, and then at that point had two little kids at home and was a little burnt out, as I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can kind of relate to. But my wife and I were thinking, like, what do we want to do next? We're kind of thinking, like, what can make a difference? We had two little kids at home, and we're just kind of just had our minds open. And one thing that my wife and I had always wanted were tattoos. We had no tattoos at that point. And, we're like, all right, let's get some tattoos of just something simple of our kids' names. And everywhere we went, just to kind of check out the places, the parlors, it was sort of what you would expect, kind of like the motorcycle or the kind of like punk rock or heavy metal type of vibe, dark walls, a lot of flash art on the walls. And it just wasn't an experience my wife and I were looking for. And the other factor was artists usually like to do more intricate pieces so that they can actually apply their artistic skills to something, whereas we wanted something simple. So taking those two things into account, we kind of did our research, and we're wondering why the tattoo industry, which is growing rapidly, which has been around for thousands of years, literally, hadn't evolved much beyond what most of us stereotypically think of as the tattoo industry. And the more research we did, we saw that the customer pool was expanding, meaning there are more folks that you wouldn't expect to have tattoos now getting tattoos. If you think of like lawyers, daycare teachers, things like that, moms, grandmas. Yet there wasn't really a place for them to go that would meet their expectations of an experience that they would like to have. So my wife and I decided to solve it. We're like, hey, let's do it. Solves the problem for us. And the more we looked at the data from the market in general, it would be solving a problem for not only a lot of new customers coming into the space, but also existing customers who may want a different experience. And then on top of that, there are artists too that don't want to be in the typical environment. They want a different environment to work in as well. So we kind of tweaked the business model from that perspective as well. But that's where we are right now, growing ink tattoos. We've had our shop open here in downtown Alexandria, Virginia, outside of DC for 1.5 years now. We're expanding via franchising, and yeah, dabbled in a few other industries and things too. We can talk about later, but that's kind of like the main thread here.
So as part of the experience, if I show up at your place to get a tattoo, am I going to get a scotch or a really good beer or something? I mean, have you got that angle to it, or?
We do not. That's
okay.
Not quite legal, so
we
gotcha. Do that. You cannot be.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. So what we changed really is the environment. It's very
gotcha.
open, very minimalist design. We've been
gotcha.
called the Apple Store of tattoo parlors.
Very cool.
So not only that, but we try to remove a lot of friction from the customer perspective. Places I went to before to get quotes, it was like handwritten quotes on like sticky notes and just not organized, right? So we try and organize things to educate the customer so that they have all the information they need ahead of time. You can book online. We are totally cashless, very transparent on our pricing. We're hourly as opposed to a lot of places do it by the piece. And we just try and make it very, very easy for the customer to have a good experience from booking to checkout.
And I'd be curious to know, a lot of that vibe from your traditional biker type of tattoo parlors, a lot of that's driven, whether by the owner, the artists that are there.
Yep.
How do you go about recruiting those artists that kind of fit that brand or that vision that you are pursuing?
Yeah, great question. So to expand on what you said there, it's a very good point you made there. The tattoo industry is very fragmented, and each individual shop has its own kind of personality based on which artists come and join it, and it's kind of driven by how they do things and the artwork that they do. What we're trying to do is standardize an experience across the nation. So whatever ink tattoos boutique, we call them boutiques and not parlors or shops, whatever ink tattoos boutique you go to, you get the same level of customer service and experience. And you'd actually be surprised how many artists have applied to our openings. Because like I said, you don't want to judge somebody with tattoos. You also don't want to judge a tattoo artist. Everybody's a person, everybody's different. Everybody wants to feel safe, secure, and, have a good life. And what we found is a way we help create a team environment on the artist side is we hire them as employees. So our artists are W-2 salaried employees, and they get paid no matter how much work they do, right? We give them a stable paycheck and stable hours. 99% of the other shops, they're all independent contractors. They have to drive their own business, do their own marketing, and then figure out splits of costs and share of revenue with an owner, kind of like a barbershop type of model. So by having a stable salary, benefits, work schedule, and a team environment where if a customer comes in, artists aren't fighting over who gets that business, the artist will actually defer to who they think on the team has the better skill set for that type of tattoo. So we're really trying to kind of create a team environment that then translates to a really good experience for the customer as well.
Well, the customer experience part there, I think is very different too, because I've been in a few tattoo parlors, whether for myself or for other people, and the general sense I've gotten in multiple places was, we don't give a rip if you're here or not. Just kind of that vibe. We're going to get, we're going to give tattoos. I'm not scary enough for them to care about my business.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because, you're the customer, right? So with us, it's very, very important that it's all about the customer. Like the tattoo artists, they're very skilled. There's a lot of them, right? It's we need people that fit the environment, and we hire for culture fit. That bedside manner feel is very, very important, so that people don't feel like you said, like you did, going into several places. We've had, for example, we've had grandmother, granddaughter matching tattoos. Like we've had people from, 18 to, I don't know if our oldest one was like 65, 70, 75, or however old, all types of people. I can't tell you how many comments we get where people either come in and they're like, wow, I didn't know this was an actual tattoo parlor. I didn't know you do real tattoos. We're like, yeah. They're like, didn't know this could exist. We're like, why shouldn't it exist, right? So for those of you out there listening, like thinking about your business and things like that, sometimes people don't realize that things can be done differently. And if you're having a problem and you solve a problem for yourself, you may be solving it for other people as well. So it's really cool to see and, kind of interact with customers from that perspective.
So 2020 had to be kind of a challenging year because this is an up close and personal kind
Yep.
of business. How did you manage through, or how are you even managing through the pandemic at this point?
Yeah, we were shut down for 2.5 months, early 2020. And we actually shut down before the governor of Virginia mandated it, just out of safety precaution, right? We thought like, hey, this is blowing up here. Let's be safe for our customers and our employees. So we shut down for 2.5 months. And during that time, we actually retained our staff on payroll, continued to pay them, took care of them. A, it's the right thing to do, and B, there are some government programs that we're out there trying to help businesses like ours, but it's a whole other story. But for us, it was all about over communicating the safety precautions were taking place. Like with customers, signs everywhere, notes on our website, posting on social media, telling them all the things that we're doing to keep the customers safe, then also our employees. And that included doing everything that the governor mandated with face masks, spacing out appointments, and luckily our business model has the tattoo artists spread apart in kind of semi-private areas, which more than meets the requirements that a lot of the hairdressers of those types of businesses are struggling to meet. So our business was already set up to meet those things. And then on top of that, the tattoo industry is very, very careful with hygiene and sanitation. So we're already more than compliant with all the stuff about cleaning and single-use like equipment, all those types of things. So from that perspective, it didn't impact us too much because our operations were already in place to meet those health requirements. But from a business perspective, we obviously took a hit. Like, there's no getting around it. People don't feel comfortable coming in, regardless of how much we put into making everybody safe, and that's okay. Like, I get it. I want people to be safe. So for us is, maybe a little more marketing, but other than that, it's weathering the situation. Every other business is in it too. So, vaccines are coming. We'll get past this as a human race. So it's just kind of sticking through it, continuing to do the right thing, and just, plugging away at what we're doing.
And how are you marketing the boutique?
So funny enough, it doesn't take too much marketing. Like, people just need tattoos. Like, I don't know how to tell you, but of course, a little bit on Google Ads, tiny bit on Instagram, but it just word gets out, and you build up. Like, the more tattoos you do for customers, I think there's a statistic out there that 9 out of 10 people with tattoos get more than one, and it's very true. So once you get somebody, once they're hooked on it, they will keep coming back. So really not that much. We'll put road signs out sometimes on the side of roads, hand out leaflets. We do stuff with a lot of local charities. We'll partner with them, sponsor their functions. We sponsored a race, like the 9/11 Memorial Race with Arlington Police and Fire Department. Just more about participating in the community and helping the community and doing things like that. Just organically, the word gets out about you, as opposed to just mass blasting marketing of any kind.
Well, I feel like with tattoo parlors, or in your case, tattoo boutiques, I mean, word of mouth is so critical. Other people referencing their good experience and that sort of thing, or seeing samples by various artists, I think that's kind of drives that too.
Yeah. And because it is a visual business, we mostly post on Instagram and Pinterest. So, we'll post tattoo photos on Instagram, but the other thing we're trying to do is, it's a very standard way. We kind of clean up the background. We put a logo on it, so there's a standard uniform look to our Instagram feed. And then we also throw in other things too, just like educating customer, like cute little graphics of, how to take care of your tattoo and things like that. So it's not just tattoo that you see that you're, kind of bombarded with if you look at our feed.
And you mentioned, that most people, that 9 out of 10 people with a tattoo will get a second tattoo. I've always heard that tattoos are addictive.
Yep.
You and your wife went and got a tattoo. Did you get more tattoos?
Yeah, I have 3. She has 3. I have plans for a lot more. She has plans for a lot more, but it's also a treat that we look at it as a reward for things. So I have certain goals I want to hit before I get additional work done. But yeah, it's definitely addicting.
I treated myself for turning 18. That was my treat. I turned 18, so I treated myself to a tattoo, which was there.
Nice. That's cool.
What do you find the split is between the temporary and the permanent tattoos? Are some people trying it out with temporary, or how's that?
I would. It's like 98% like
Permanent?
real tattoos.
Yeah.
Permanent ones. But we've definitely had. The other thing we offer is skin allergy tests, where we'll drop like little bits of the ink on your skin to make sure it doesn't react. So we've had several customers that have gone through the whole progression of skin allergy test, and then like, oh, I'm thinking of this design or this placement or size here or there, doing the temporary tattoo, and then proceeding on to do the full permanent tattoo. And again, that goes back to us wanting the customer to have a good experience, feel comfortable about it, not get pressured, and like, really understand what is happening throughout the entire process.
Are you selling franchises now, or are you still in the planning stage where you're talking about it?
Yeah. So, good question. We are selling them now. That's something very different that we're doing too. So, like Caleb mentioned earlier and pointed out, tattoo shops are independently owned, very fragmented. Very few of them scale beyond maybe 2 shops in a local area. Again, because it comes down to personality driven by an individual. What we're doing is putting in the business processes and standardization. They can then pick up this business template that we've created and build it somewhere else. And when we looked at scaling, just because my wife and I like to do things like, we're going to do something, we're going to do it. We didn't want to just do one little thing. We want to kind of change and improve things as much as possible. So when we looked at scaling, there are several options. We could either continue to scale by putting our own money and effort into opening additional boutiques and managing them ourselves, or we could scale by taking in outside capital and then also, manage them and opening them around the country. Or third option was scale via franchising. The first 2 just weren't an option for us because our time and money is limited. So we would not be able to fly around everywhere, know all the local zoning laws, and kind of manage everything from a distance. So that was an option. Outside capital, I've been in companies where we've taken outside capital, and that just brings a whole nother level of decision making and communication that's required. And we didn't need to do it, and we weren't considering that option. And then the last option, franchising, I knew nothing about franchising until we started Ink Tattoos. Nothing about it. But I saw, hey, it works for certain businesses, legitimate business models that you see every day. Orange Theory Fitness, McDonald's, types like that. They've kind of like risen to the top and proven out their business model works, the brand works, and it really allows somebody else to kind of get a business, it's kind of business manual. We call it operations manual in the franchise industry, where you basically get a bulk of like, here's what everything you have to do, go do your own, right? And then that franchisee, the franchise owner, pays the brand money for that intellectual property essentially, and then gets support from the franchisor, the brand, on how to operate their business effectively or efficiently. So we chose that route. We thought it'd be really cool to work with other like-minded entrepreneurs who see what we're doing, believe in the vision, and want to own their own boutique and be a part of their community and all those things, right? So that's the route we're taking. We started franchising right when a pandemic hit, so that's been challenging. Not gonna lie about that, but we've had great candidates. Some of them, it's just not the right time, right? Everybody kind of wants to wait and see how things play out over the next few months. Some other candidates, they weren't a good fit for us. We weren't a good fit for them. which is totally fine. We're trying to be very, very selective about it because we're essentially entering a business marriage with somebody for 10 years. Contracts are 10 years. We want them to be successful. We're not going to be successful unless they are. So we're being very, very selective about who we bring on board as a franchise owner.
What is the ideal candidate? If you were to say, these are really some of the key things we're looking for that will make a difference, who are you looking for?
Yeah. First thing is not necessarily anybody with tattoos or tattoo experience. We think outsiders to the tattoo industry actually may be better candidates because they bring the fresh perspective that my wife and I have. We just see that there's a different way you can do it. Not better, not the right way or anything like that. It's just a different way and a different demographic of customers. So somebody who understands that concept, that we're doing things differently, is okay to do things differently and try new things. And somebody who's just really good at communicating, got to communicate with customers, your team. And that brings up leadership and management experience. We're not, doesn't matter what degree you have, or even if you have a degree or any of that stuff, or if you've owned a franchise before, we're really looking for just a quality person who wants to do the right thing, lead people, set the right tone for the team and the community, and, try something new. So yeah, it's broad, but at the same time, it's like you just get the gut feeling. You can kind of tell, like, if
you're making sure it's a cultural fit for people that are gonna carry on the brand promise that you've started.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. You said it better than me.
And
as some franchises for
that's
us,
why I've got a podcast, right?
And as you look to expand and franchise outside of Virginia, are there the legalities, the red tape in other states that you've come across and that you're learning about as you've worked on this?
Yeah, you must have done your research, Caleb, because you're bringing all these like spot on questions. Yes, there's a lot of red tape. It takes a lot of effort to get to the point to start franchising, because when you're selling franchises, you're essentially you got to register at the federal level because you're essentially selling a security, an investment, if you will. So there's a FDD, a franchise disclosure document, that's hundreds of pages of long. It's a template, you got to fill it out. We had a great franchise lawyer who worked with us, loved our concept, but that took several months of work to do. Then you also need to have your operations manual done, and that's that manual you give to a franchise owner of like how to operate it. Everything from like how do you post on social media, like what supplies to order. We've actually laid out pictures and templates of this picture frame goes there, these inks go over there. So that took several months as well. And luckily for us, since we've started, owned, and managed our own boutique, like these are all lessons learned that we get to pass on to a franchise owner. So there's that federal level regulation. And then under that, there's each state regulates franchises differently as well. So about half the states, they're okay with just like, okay, you meet federal standards, we're good. You just have to disclose to a franchise owner, the FTD, they get 2 weeks to review it. They can't sign quickly. You got to give them time to process it and do their due diligence. Some other states require additional information. Virginia is actually really tough. Maryland, New York, California. So we've opted not to register with those states just because we're too new and those aren't necessarily target markets for us right now. So we've kind of like gone with the states that are good with the federal level minimum requirements for registration. So that's the aspect on franchising, but then each state has their own laws and regulations and even cities on tattoos, tattoo shops, like what zoning can you be in and things like that, licensing for tattoo artists. So it's interesting. And because of that, we've really focused on the Southeast for our first franchise owners, Texas to Florida to North Carolina. Those states, we're registered with them. They're easy to register. I've lived in North Carolina, lived in Florida several times. We know the areas, we know that, or, we expect, or gotta be careful what I say because you can't promise or say certain things, but we expect those are good markets for for ink tattoos to be in. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. A little more than.
Well, I mean, it sounds like and it's rational. You've gone to the decidedly less regulatory intense environments just because when you're trying to get something established, why introduce those friction points right off the bat?
Exactly. Exactly. And the Southeast, I mean, the weather's greater, the beach, like it's uh, tattoo industry is seasonal to some degree. So it's just a longer season down there for us.
That makes
And
sense.
we can also better support the franchise owners. It's a lot easier for us to drive a few hours down to Raleigh as opposed to like flying to LA to try and support a franchise owner there.
Okay, so here's the one sort of Chris Wallace, Mike Wallace gotcha question.
Mhm.
How many face tattoos do people come in and request? I mean, are there many Mike Tysons that roll in and are like, I want one on
There
my
are
face?
not. There are not. There are very, very, very few.
Yeah,
And I will say that our company policy is no face or hand tattoos unless you're already covered.
I
You're not
gotcha.
coming in and getting the first tattoo on your face. Each and Virginia is probably the most or one of the most highly or strictly regulated states for the tattoo industry. Licensing for tattoo artists is extremely hard here. There are disclosures, which is great for us because we've done the hardest state first ourselves. But bottom line, you can refuse service to whoever you want. So
Gotcha.
we refuse service to people who aren't fully covered, and obviously no hate symbols, gang symbols. We will not do those either.
So you got high standards where you're only going to do stuff that's essentially good taste.
Yeah, and yeah, there are plenty of customers that want all the good stuff. So
Gotcha. No, that's great.
And I've seen in the past couple of years, as you know, the social conversation has come to the forefront of some tattoo parlors and boutiques, offering to cover up those
Yep.
types of hate tattoos
Mhm.
and stuff. Is that anything y'all have considered?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do those if somebody comes in and wants to do that. Trying to think if we've actually had any. Interesting enough, just kind of aligned with that. The Washington football team changed their name here. So we had a reporter from ESPN reach out and ask if anybody had come in to get a cover up of the previous football name to the new one. We have not, but yeah, we'll do the hate cover ups for free. But other cover ups too, we do those pretty often. People will get a tattoo when maybe they're 18 and then they're like, oh, I want something different. I'm 45 or 60 now. So we do plenty of those as well.
Since you introduced football, are you a Washington football fan? Are you a Ravens
No,
fan? Who do you like?
no. I'm a Bengals fan.
A Bengals fan. Okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so my question was, as it relates to Washington football, do you think Dan Snyder and his crew are going to come up with a different name, or are they just going to keep it generic?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like they may be just testing the waters to see if people like it, right?
I think they ought to call it the Washington Swamp Things. Don't you think that'd be good?
The Swamp Monsters.
The Swamp Monsters. I think that would resonate with everyone except for 535 people I can think of.
Right.
With the Gators.
Something. I don't know.
Never know, if they go on a nice run, they might just keep it for good luck.
Yeah.
I haven't even followed football this year. Are they even doing well, or
they won the division? Now I think they had a losing record. It was like who could lose the least or lose. I don't know. I don't think anybody in that division had a winning record, and they still made it. They still made it to the playoffs.
Being a Bengals fan, I'll like follow the season for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, there goes another season, so I'll lose interest.
That's it. You've got to be a diehard to be a Bengals fan, and quite honestly, it was that way being a Chiefs fan for a bunch of years until just recently, and now we've got Patrick Mahomes there, and life is pretty good. But before that, man, it had been a long. I'm old enough to say I can remember watching Super Bowl III when Kansas City beat Minnesota, and that was 1970. And they weren't any dang good after that. I mean, they never got back there until Mahomes took them there just a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think I remember Bengals were in a Super Bowl against the 49ers. It was late 80s. I was like 6 years old or something. So like, my team's great. And then, like
and a long drought.
City, nothing since then, yeah.
Like it's kind of like being an Arkansas Razorbacks fan. Yeah. Remember when Nixon came to the last time we were in the running for anything good? 1970. I was like, holy smokes. Anyway, we'll get there. We've got a good coach now. But I digress. Sorry. You get me started on football, I might go in any kind of direction.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
We're counting on Navy having a better season next year.
Yeah.
That was it was abysmal.
I feel like for everybody.
I think if we'd lined up the the lacrosse team, they would have done just as well, probably better.
Probably.
Jeff, if Navy or Arkansas won a national championship, would you go to an ink boutique and get a tattoo commemorating the championship?
I would get Bill the Goat if Navy wins on my back, as big as from shoulder to shoulder,
life size.
Yeah, if they ever win a national championship, but between now and the day I die, which I maybe got another 30, 40 years left, I will get Bill the Goat done, and I'll come to Pete's place to get it done.
There you go.
You've heard it here, folks. Folks.
You're recording, right, Caleb? So
yeah,
we got this on record.
We'll live on.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably about the time we land the plane. Pete, we appreciate you for joining us, but we like to kind of conclude on a question with all our guests to, if you had the opportunity to go back in time and, visit with your younger self, what sort of advice would you give yourself, before you embarked on this journey?
I think it would be, this kind of leads from like school to like career is, I've learned it now, but, tell my younger self is like, don't stress so much about being like, oh, this is the path I want to be on. Like, this is where I need to go. These are the things I need to do. Like, I'm going to be doing this for 20 years. So this decision really matters. It'd be more of like, you never know where life will take you. So many things can come up outside of your control to influence your personal life or your professional life. So just like chill out a little bit. I was not a very chill person before. So I think kids kind of mellowed me out a lot. Just kind of like keep an open mind. You never know when an opportunity will come up. You never know when something else might interest you. Like, I did the whole, like, what would you think, like Naval Academy, military, Georgetown MBA, worked in like the Pentagon, consulting, all this stuff. And now I'm in the tattoo industry of all things. I've been in crypto for a while too. I'm also in the cannabis industry. I mean, there's like, you never know where life will take you and what you will find interesting even just 1 year from now. So don't stress, like take your life in little bite-sized pieces.
Enjoy the journey, right?
Yeah. That's another thing. Don't rush so far to get to something. You might not get there, so like enjoy.
Well, and you realize that something you're chasing is actually the experience of the journey, and not that destination. I mean, the journey is the destination. It took me a long time to figure that out, and once you figure that out, you have a lot of good days, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I still struggle with it every day, like, but I have to continually remind myself, and like, hey, yes, all this pandemic stuff, but I found out that like I've spent so much more time with my kids now. They're not in daycare, and like we would never have had this time, with them. But yeah, so I just see things differently now too. Yeah.
Well, if our listeners and viewers want to find out more about Inc., potential franchisees, or just they maybe want to have a conversation with you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Peter Joukov, Joukov, or go to our website, inktattoos.com, INQ tattoos, and that's TATTOOS. There are 2 T's and 2 O's. Still kind of misspelled that every once in a while, but inktattoos.com. And then you'll see there's a franchising page there. And then if anybody wants to like get a tour of our boutique here just outside of DC, hit me up, and happy to do it.
Thanks for coming on. Go Navy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Go Navy.
We appreciate you, Pete. Bye.
Yep. Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Jeff.